Good day, YouTubers, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls from all around the world. So last week we finished these, and I haven't glued them on yet. Well, you're not supposed to glue this one on because that's where the battery box is going to go for the LED lights. But I was working in here on ropes and these masts and stuff, and I didn't want to get sidetracked with that, but I had a major faux pas. A couple weeks ago we glued the mast on, and then we did the dead eyes on this bracket on both sides, and that took quite a bit of time. But in the process of gluing the mast on, I actually glued them in backwards. In other words, this was on the other side here, reversed 180 degrees. So when I went to start doing this standing rigging, I noticed after the I was on the fourth rope when I was doing it, and I kept getting confused because the ship was sitting opposite the way my photos were facing. So I went ahead and did the first 3 or 4 ropes with the double blocks and the pulleys and everything, and got them tied down, and was standing back and looking at it. Wow, that looks great. And I got to this photograph here, adding the second rope on the front bowsprit, and I noticed, this highlights pictorial A, which is over here, and the highlight shows that crow's nest landing up there and how the rope ties around it. And I said, oh, my crow's nest is backwards, the way this was facing compared to the front of the ship. And then I looked again, and that showed me the one up there, the mast was backwards. And then I looked at the middle one, the same thing. Oh my gosh, I was really upset then. So I got the back of the box. I turned the box around and looked at the back of it just to verify. Sure enough, all 3 masts were glued in backwards. I said, oh my goodness. And I already had 4 of the standing rigging ropes tied on. And I was doing this 5th one when I realized what was going on here. So I said, okay, we're going to have to back up and punt, because everything is wrong. So I had to cut my knots that I'd already tied, and I left this one on this side, but up here I had to cut because we had to turn this whole thing around. So then I had to, after I got the ropes out of the way, I had to break these loose from where they're glued in down inside the ship, and that was not easy. Ended up busting this railing off and had to glue that back on, but I had to manhandle these to get them to come loose and come out of there, and finally was able to get them turned around and re-glued in position. So they actually line up better now than they were before, but they are all facing the right direction now. So then I spent another couple hours redoing my ropes that I had glued on there or tied in the wrong side, and redid them and got them on there, and then finished out the last of the other ropes that were in the plans for the standing rigging. I just noticed this is on the wrong side of that beam in the crow's nest. There we go. So we got them turned around and they're facing the right direction now. And see how the smaller pole coming off the main pole is in the front facing the bow, and I had the smaller pole in the back. So when I saw that, I said, oh my goodness, what a mess I'm in now. So we got her corrected and tied off the rest of the ropes that it wanted us to for the main standing rigging. I think there's going to be some more standing rigging after we do the because the next thing in the plans here is to start the shrouds and the second set of dead eyes above the rack there on the side of the ship. So that's what we're gearing up for next, is the shrouds. And I think there's 52 of them. So we'll have to get the length right, use our template that they gave us and get that length right and tie them off. And on the last ship I built, I used the same rope on both sides. That's why I had two templates that matched that I had made by hand. And I would do, you know, the port and the starboard at the same time. You know, tie off one, get it laced, and then with the template in place on the other side, I could go over there and lace up the other side. So I'm going to look at this real close before I start on this, because I don't want to end up like I did last week with this mast being turned around backwards. But yeah, they're telling you to do first, second. Okay, so that would be port and starboard. So do one on the starboard first and then turn the boat around and do one on the port, so you don't tip the mast doing them all on one side. So we'll probably try to do that, but we're going to try to do it with just one string instead of having a whole bunch of them tied off on the top. That way I can just loop one string through. See, they're not showing me the crow's nest in a detailed shot other than this shot right here, but that doesn't really tell me if they're tying each one off individually and then doing the next one. So I'm going to try to do it like I did the last ship. This is the San Juan. I did that 2 years ago. The last ship was the HMS Bounty, and I did this one the same way as the Bounty. Them ropes just go up and go through and then come back down. They're not tied off up there, so that made it a lot easier. So I'm going to try to do that here. Anything you can do to make it easier, because this thing ain't easy. And they really don't give me enough photograph zoom on that spot to to see what I want to see. I'm assuming they tied each one off individually by the looks of it. But so that's where we're at this week. We did get past the distressing moment of the mast being backwards, but other things I'm working on this week is I'm adding on to my irrigation in the back here. I did a little bit of micro head in these bins here. We got the 2 new shelves set up in the greenhouse, but I want to add some more micro heads back in this far corner where I've got a little garden of plants over there, and lilies and Japanese palm and a couple of orange trees, probably going to be sour orange trees, and then all these potted plants here. So I'm going to tap off the feed that goes over to that side and waters all that. I'm going to tap off of that because this is where it comes out of the ground, and extend it over to this side and put a bunch of microheads to water all this stuff here. Because we got an automatic, I just turn this and it automatically waters for whatever time you set it for, and then it shuts off, and that feeds over there to the fence back there. So you can see we have some additions to the chicken family. We have 3 Rhode Island red hens that I just picked up last evening. Got them in a local chicken guy that was growing them. Had them on a Facebook page, and we're keeping them separate for now. So I got the door closed that automatically opens and closes. I got the rope taken off of it, and the door is closed. So we're going to keep them in this run here separate from the other chickens until they get acclimated. I'm going to probably make a week or so before I let them mingle with these 3 that are laying 3 eggs a day now. That you've seen before, so they can get in and out, and they'll sleep in their roofs like normal and get to their feed like normal. They just won't be able to come over here. And I got a separate feed bucket over here for these new chickens, and some water is right here in these cups, so they can live out here for a week or 2 until they get acclimated to this new pen. So that's new stuff this week. Time for some dead eyes. We're gonna hate dead eyes after a while. Okay, that was split up pretty fast, so hope you can make it out. Got a little bit of super glue on that dead eye right there. I got to scrape off with a knife. But I did the one on the other side first to get a feel for what I was doing. And according to the way they want us to do it in the plans, What I'm doing different is I am wrapping this neck of the loop of that deadeye knot down here in the vise ahead of time instead of doing it on the ship, which is really hard to do, especially after you get a whole bunch in a row here and they're in the way of each other and you got to try to wrap that loop on there. Oh my gosh, forget that. So I'm making this string extra long on both sides of the knot. I just tie one single big granny knot on the main rope while the deadeye's in the vise, and then put some super glue on that length there, and then trap it with the tan rope at the beginning. When I was doing this closed caption video just now, I didn't have enough tail on the beginning of my first knot to go all the way up. I did on that side, but I'm going to be able to go all the way up with the shorter tail and then tie it off on top, and then the long tail you're going to use for the lacing and then tie it off on the bottom, and that works out really good. And all you got to do is, using your template, get this knot tied off up here with the right amount of tension. You don't want to make it too tense and you don't want to make it too loose. So when you do the template and the lacing and you pull that lacing tight, you don't get a big difference in the height of these top ones. So that's the main goal here, is to make all the top ones the same height. And that's what the template's for, is to help you create that height difference. Another trick I was doing, you saw me stick this up there. This is a gauge I'm using to cut off that tail of the big black rope. So I'll keep all those the same distance and then lace them up with the tan rope. So I'm going to use that as a template for cut. Try to keep that the same. It's a little long on this one compared to that one, but we got to keep that in mind as we go. It's hard to hold the template up there and then hold your tail and cut it at the right distance at the same time. So, but our goal is, like we got here on the San Juan, that's about a 85% rate of being at the exact same height. As you can see, some of the smaller dead eyes in there are at a little different height, but they're not part of the shrouds. They go all the way up to the very top. They're a different rigging. So that's our eventual goal, is to try to get all these at the same height. So I think I figured out the best way to do it. We're not going to try to do both sides at the same time with one rope, because I want to be able to do this wrap and tie that knot and get this all done in the vise, and then bring it up here on the ship with the template and lace it after I pull the tension I need to and tie it off up here. So I think I figured out how to do it to make them all look good. So now we got 50 more to go. No, there's 26, yeah, 26 and 26 minus 2, so 25, 25. Yeah, we got 50 more to go. 25 on each side. And then to give us a break, I looked ahead in the plans, and the next thing in the plans is to wire up the switch box and get that installed. So we'll be stripping and doing some soldering or whatever to connect all 8 of these wires together. They're 4 and 4, 4 reds and 4 blacks, to hook to these LED lantern lights. So they like to stop and give us breaks every now and then to do something different, which is good, because after 50 of these things I'm going to need a break. Thanks for watching. That's the Blue Angels doing their stunt flying. Airport's over that way about 3 or 4 miles. This is Sun and Fun Fly-In week in Florida.